Alright, so real quick before we get into the actual video, last time I made a video like this, everybody wanted to know, how can I make my own? And at the time, I didn't know there was an easy way, because I did Photoshop and I created the document, and it was a whole process. I shared those pictures online, but it's still kind of hard to work with. Thankfully, since then, I found a much easier way. So all you got to do is you got to go to tiermaker.com. It's the standard tier maker website that everybody uses. And once you find a public, and this is important, it needs to be a public, reusable template. You can't just go into and make a single-use template. It has to be a public one as far as I know. And what you do is once you have your public tier list, you can also just make one if you can't find one, by the way. Once you have it, just click this alignment chart and boom. You can move these things and put it, it's exactly like I do it, and it's super easy to do. Pretty much anybody can do it as long as you've got the images to upload and, you've got an email address, which, let's face it, you all have an email address. So there you go. Easy, completely free way of making a graph just like I do, and it doesn't involve giving your money to a scummy corporation like Adobe. Now onto the actual video. You know the drill by now. Working on a big video, want to put something out because it's been a while since my last Unknown video. Bunch of changes to Unknown's power and add-on, so figured why not revisit the add-on tier list. Or is it the add-on graph? What do I call this thing? Because I don't really know what to call these. Anyways. Focusing on the actual add-ons, we've got Sketch Attempt. I'm putting it in the exact same spot because I still got no clue, man. Like I'm trying. I am really trying to figure this add-on out. I just can't. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And I try and test it. I think it's good. It always does, it always applies Oblivious, so that's why it's more on the reliable side instead of the inconsistent. But I got no clue. I don't. On to the Fallen King himself, Blurry Photo. Honestly, I'm going to put this in reliable and weak now. Because Blurry Photo is really only good in one scenario now. And that's when you've got a hallucination on one side of the palette, the survivor's on the hallucination side of the palette, and you're on the other side of the palette. And the survivor is constantly just running back and forth away from the palette, trying to bait you to teleport or try and run away if it seems like you're not going to actually teleport ever. And that is pretty much the only time when Blurry Photo is useful, because it lets you grab someone if they've got something like resilience, right? It can make it a little bit easier to grab somebody with resilience, and that's basically it. I don't really think that's worth it. But to be fair, it pretty much always works in that scenario, so it is reliable. You just don't care if it's reliable, because base kit changes have effectively made it irrelevant, and it really should do something else, like maybe cleansing reveal buffer when you teleport or something weird like that. Anyways, Rabbit's Foot. Really, exact same place again. I don't think there's been no changes to this, and I don't think there's really anything worth talking about Rabbit's Foot. It applies hemorrhage for 30 seconds if you injure somebody with UVX, which just use B-Movie Poster. It's objectively better in every single way, because if you injure somebody, they're not going to have any heal progress. And if you've injured them, they're also probably not going to be healing in the next 30 seconds because you're going to chase them. And even if you do immediately down them and throw them on hook, by the time they're off the hook, and you come back to interrupt the heal, that hemorrhage is gone. It's only 30 seconds. It could be 90 seconds and it would still be garbage. Speaking of garbage, punctured eyeball, what needs to be said? It's punctured eyeball. There's nothing else to say. It's just bad. It's got way too many conditions, and it does basically, well, I won't say it's basically nothing. It's got a nice effect, but with how many conditions there are to it, there's no point. Why would you ever run this? And that's the brown. Look at that. We're already speedrunning. Let's go ahead and hide the browns, and we'll move on to the yellow add-ons. Oh, boy. Oh boy, let's talk about UFO. It's what I call UFO, but really its name is Device of Unknown Origins. This add-on is still awful. I'm sorry, but it's just terrible. Nothing changed about it, and in fact, I feel like people right now hate being oblivious more than ever, so it's gotten worse, I dare say. However, I did make a mistake. If you look at my last list, I put it all the way down here, which was objectively wrong. So, we're gonna fix that. It's not inconsistently weak, it's reliably weak, because there's never a time where it doesn't screw you over, so you can always rely on it screwing you over by making the survivors around your hallucinations oblivious, making them want to cleanse your hallucinations, and you do not want to encourage survivors to cleanse your hallucinations. It's so weird, it's so backwards. They could easily fix this. They could make it oblivious after they remove a hallucination. Make it 60 seconds, and then it's a good add-on. It'd still be hard to tell, and I'd probably put it right there next to Sketch Mural, because oblivious is such a hard add-on to tell. There's such a hard effect to know if you're getting value out of, but at least it would be good and not detrimental to you. So there you go. Speaking of another add-on that I kind of misplaced, let's talk about Notebook of Theories. I think Notebook of Theories is a lot better than I gave it credit for. Especially now that Blurry Box is dead, one of the main drawbacks of Notebook of Theories, which was the opportunity cost of not running one half of Blurry Box, is gone. Not only that, I kind of was using it wrong. It was a skill issue on my part. I was focusing more on trying to use it to reduce the amount of like distance they gain, or a survivor gains when you injure them with a UVX, but really, it's just all around very useful. So I'm going to bump it up a little bit. I think this is one of the stronger add-ons you can run, and if you're a newcomer, I definitely recommend running it. This one, I don't think has really changed much for this one, if I'm being honest. I think it's still okay, it does its job, but also at the same time, it's kind of only works in certain scenarios, so... I think it's slightly better now. Once again, that opportunity cost isn't really a factor. So I'm going to move it a little bit stronger, but it's still kind of all around weird. Because Last Known Recording is an okay add-on. It's really good for when you're trying to distract a survivor or keep your hallucinations really hidden, and then you can teleport into them because they don't realize there's a hallucination so close to you. But outside of that one scenario, I don't think it's that useful. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible, it's not detrimental. And I do think overall it is a beneficial effect to have, but there is some possibility of counter synergy. I never really got around to testing that because I completely forgot until right now talking about it, to be honest. So, oopsie, we'll see if I can. I'll test that soon, hopefully. Hopefully I won't forget again. Somebody comment, if you're watching this video like 3 weeks after release, leave a comment and ask me if I ever tested this. Okay, all right, moving on to Slash Backpack. I think it's good add-on. I still think it's good. I don't think it's as good as Notebook of Theories, but I think it's close. It can be, it's definitely reliable. There's a lot of good scenarios for it, for Slash Backpack, and being able to like move your hallucinations at will. And it also combos very well with new Vanishing Box, which is something I guess that kind of buffs it up a little. But at the same time, I think that survivors now know to avoid your hallucinations and like to not sit directly in them, especially now that every unknown has somewhat of a blurry photo effect and they can hit you pretty quickly. Even if you're not actively like dispelling the hallucination, just being close to it means that you're probably going to get hit if the unknown knows what they're doing and how to control your pathing. So most people know to avoid hallucinations now, so you can't really get those like special backpack shots very often, but it's still a good add-on. And I think it's gotten a little bit better because of the Vanishing Box nerf. As for Victim's Map, I feel like it's pretty much in the same spot, just maybe slightly better. I feel like Victim's Map it's good for hitting clips. You know, that's really it. If you're not trying to clip farm, I don't think there's much of a point to it. And even then, most of the time, it's not that useful. It can be good, don't get me wrong. There's nothing wrong with it, especially if you're a beginner. It can be a nice add-on to have, but overall, I think it's very unremarkable. It's like the epitome of a yellow add-on. I think it's a perfect yellow add-on because it's just kind of there. You know, it's nice. It has one use for clip farming and like learning the killer and maybe learning a little bit of macro if you're really new to the game. But other than that, there's not much to say about it. You know, there's nothing new I can say about it. It's not very remarkable. It hasn't changed in any remarkable way. The only reason it's gotten better is because there's less opportunity cost to it now. And that does it for the yellow. So let's go ahead and move on to the green add-ons. Green add-ons. This is where we're going to start seeing some major shifts, I think. First off, footprint cast has gotten better. I'll say that much. It has gotten better. Now that I think about it, it hasn't gotten that much better. Yeah, I think it's gotten a little bit better. It's still kind of inconsistent as to whether or not you're going to get value from it, unless you're running Vanishing Box. And then it will be very consistent, because let's face it, you're always going to be trying to get your hallucinations up with Vanishing Box. It still is a little bit of a misleading add-on, because it doesn't give you as much of a benefit as you'd think it does. But it's gotten better now because of Vanishing Box's downgrade or nerf. I feel like it's gotten a little bit better, but even if you're running Vanishing Box, there are better options that we'll talk about. Speaking of Vanishing Box, let's just get this over with. Vanishing Box is kind of terrible now, unless you're running a whole build around it, which honestly is never even worth it. I'd really say it's not that good. There are situations where it can be clutch, don't get me wrong. Applying Weaken when a survivor completes a generator it's crazy good. But also at the same time, nowadays, especially once again, that survivors are better and they understand more about how to play against the unknown and how to dodge. It can be very inconsistent if you get any value at all, and it can be so like detrimental if you're not getting tons of value from it, or the survivors do know how to play around Vanishing Box, that I really don't know where to put it. I'm going to leave it in kind of, I guess, this area now that I think about it a bit more. Because it's not super inconsistent. You will get a bit of value from it, probably once a match. You maybe get 1 or 2 extra hits, but really I don't think it's anything to write home about anymore. I feel like they over-nerfed it a bit. I feel like it should maybe be like a 40 or 60% instead of the massive like minus 80%. We do have a lot more add-on variety now. I think that's mainly because everything is a lot, with like one or two exceptions, all the add-ons are just kind of mid now. But, you know, we do have add-on variety, so nerf worked, I guess, and we're probably not going to see it buffed back anytime soon. Next up, we have front page article, and this is whenever you kick a palette, you gain a bit more hallucination progress. This is what I'd rather run with Vanishing Box. Instead of footprint cast, I'd much rather run front page article. And the reason is I have complete control over when I do this. The only time you have to kick a palette as unknown is when it's a god palette. That is the only time. Unknown can play around most palettes, even like high wall tiles, like jungle gyms. You can play around those palettes if you really desperately need to. Plus, with Vanishing Box getting nerfed, if you're running that add-on, there's a lot more demand for it. I think front page article is a lot better now than it used to be, and it was already the like ideal extra hallucination progress add-on. Next up, we've got B-Movie Poster. I mean, it's just good. There's no opportunity cost to it anymore. It does exactly what you need it to, every time you need it to. I feel like I'm getting so many more syringes. I think I said in the last video, I feel like I'm getting a lot of syringes. It's gotten so much worse. I mean, I've started keeping track of some things, like how often I see a syringe and how often I get Ormond and things like that, because it's happening so often. It's kind of absurd. And right now, I don't know if it's just me, but I have an 80% appearance rate for syringes. Granted, right now it's 2v8, so whenever I play 1v4, it's typically only like super, I don't want to say competitive, but I guess sweaty players in 1v4 right now that are playing Survivor. But there is always a syringe. Even if it doesn't get used, there is always a syringe in my matches, 80% of them. And it is absurd, and I'm so tired of it. And B-Movie Poster stops that. Not fully, but it does stop it for the most part. And that's good enough for me. It gives me 30 seconds at minimum to try and down the person before they can use the syringe if I've got the UVX hit. So it's awesome. It also forces survivors, when you do M1 them, if they're in a bad situation, it forces them to use their syringe maybe at a bad time where they don't get a lot of value. Like maybe I end up just leaving them anyways. You know, so I think it's a lot better now than it used to be. Don't get me wrong, it was already one of his better add-ons, but now it's so much better for so many reasons, even though the add-on itself has barely been changed. That being said, I feel like Hypnotist Watch has actually gotten a little bit worse. It's still reliable, don't get me wrong. It's very reliable. I just don't think it's as good as it used to be. For the sole reason that background player isn't nearly as prevalent anymore, and the main strategy and the main dominant like exhaustion that I'm seeing right now is dramaturgy. And Hypnotist Watch doesn't do much against dramaturgy, because dramaturgy, typically you want to be using it, if not outside of chase, like very early on to the chase, before the killer really has a chance to do anything to you. So I feel like smart players are going to be able to outplay your Hypnotist Watch, and really the only way I see Hypnotist Watch getting better is if Dead Hard somehow makes a comeback. But right now, I feel like a lot of the exhaustion perks, except with the exception of maybe Live, but even then, I'm not seeing Live very often because it's all Dramaturgy, Finesse, or Sprint Burst right now. So I feel like it's not really doing anything too special anymore. It has the potential to come back, but it's going to be a very reactive add-on, depending on what the meta is. It's either going to be very good or very bad, and right now the pendulum's kind of swung in the other way where it's kind of bad. If Dead Hard comes back, or Dramaturgy gets nerfed, whatever it may be, it'll swing back the other way, I think. And there you go, that's the greens done. Let's go ahead and move on to the purple add-ons. Purple add-ons are going to be mostly the same. I think OGC did get nerfed a little bit because it lost its use case as a timer, and also with blurry photo, you're technically losing out on a little bit more of the duration of the effect because you can't kick things as fast, or you can't vault or whatever. But we're talking like fractions of a second here, so it's not overall, it's not much worse. I still think it is pretty decent. I think it's just a little bit harder to get value out of, so I don't want to put it, it's definitely not inconsistent. You're always going to get a bit of value out of it, but I just don't think it's worth the opportunity cost as much as it was back when you could run it with blurry photo. It was, I wouldn't say it was equivalent to Vanishing Box, but it was very good, especially for newer players. But now if you're a bit more experienced, I really don't think you need this, especially considering, once again, you do not have to kick pallets as unknown once you get very comfortable with the UVX. Homemade Oni mask, it's like, once again, it's kind of whatever. I mean, really, the only problem I have with it is it just really doesn't do anything, and the only time that homemade mask does anything is when you're running the slugging build. Let's face it, there are better killers for running a dedicated slugging build. I think Unknown's strength when it comes to slugging is the fact that they can transition to slugging at any time. I don't think that they're... If you want to go in with like premeditated slugging, there is so many better killers for that. But the ability to immediately go from a quote-unquote normal gameplay to having, 3 or 4 on the floor as Unknown is very reliable if the survivors don't expect it. It's kind of like a sucker punch, You need to be able to take advantage of any opening that they give you, but you don't want to make it obvious that that's your strategy from the beginning, is how I think I would explain slugging on Unknown. And then we've got Milk. It's staying in the exact same place. It's Milk, man. Come on. Like, I made a whole video talking about why this thing is absolutely crazy. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about Milk too much because I finally have the actual video out, and it's crazy. If you haven't seen the Milk video somehow, go watch the Milk video. Alright, and somehow my Serum Vial got hidden, maybe because it's a terrible add-on. It's not terrible, but it's also gotten worse because of, It's also gotten worse the same way that Hypnotist Watch has. Serum Vial is always worse Hypnotist Watch. That's just a fact. Hypnotist Watch activates more, it's easier to activate, and it's just overall kind of baffling to me that Serum Vial is the purple and Hypnotist is the green. I feel like anybody could have looked at those add-ons and said, that probably should have been reversed, but I guess they weren't expecting people to get as good with the UVX as quickly as we did. I guess they figured that it would take a long time for people to really get a hang of the UVX, which even then, considering that the Hypnotist Watch, you only have to direct impact people, it baffles me, really. The more I think about it, the more I get confused and angry about this add-on, if I'm being honest. So, nothing too much to say about this add-on outside of that. It's just kind of terrible. I hope they rework it. There's tons of things that they could have done to it, and they just didn't. They only wanted to nerf Blurry Box, which, yeah, fair enough. But I really do think that there are some add-ons that need to be, I don't want to say butchered, but definitely changed. And now we're onto the Iris already. We've only got 2 to work with here. OSS report, it's definitely gotten a bit better, I'd say. Well, it's kind of gotten better. It lost the fact that it was needed to have a timer on your teleport when paired with OGC, and it also is a little bit worse because of the blurry photo nerf, so you can't run it with 2 of its best add-ons. But now, because every other add-on is kinda garbage, and most importantly, distortion was nerfed, that was the biggest downside of this add-on, was giving survivors 2 ways or 2 places on the map where they could refill distortion. So now that distortion only works in chase, and you don't see it nearly as much anymore, I think this add-on overall, while it's definitely gotten changed, I do think it's gotten much better. You're not always going to be teleporting off cooldown, that's why it's not all the way maxed out at reliable, but I do think overall it's a very strong add-on, and even if it's nothing crazy, it is worthy of its iridescent status, especially considering it enables some kind of silly builds like a Coulrophobia or distressing build or what have you. So overall, I would like to see it maybe give the Unknown undetectable after a teleport as well. That way it could be more of a misdirection thing, but that could also be a separate add-on. Either way, I think it still is overall a good add-on. And Iri Film, I hate Iri Film, but I can't, it is so busted. It is just off the charts strong, but at the same time, it's super inconsistent. I'm trying not to reiterate the same points over and over again, but for some of these add-ons, nothing has changed, so it's just, I don't know. Where did I put it last time? Hold on. Last time I put it like right here. I'm gonna move it further along, because now, one of the few things that was kind of keeping Iri Film in check was the fact that you couldn't run blurry photo with it. So you were having to run like, well, you could, but most people ran Iri Film with Vanishing Box. First off, you can't do that now. You have so few hallucinations, you basically give up your teleport power if you run both of these add-ons. So it's really not worth running that anymore. And back in the day, one of the big downsides of that build was not having blurry photo. Well, now you have blurry photo base kit, right? And you can't run Vanishing Box, so you could run something like Iri Film and Milk, or Iri Film and OSS, or Iri Film and this and that, right? So I feel like it's got a lot more build variety now, and I feel like overall it is a bit stronger, even if you can't run it with Vanishing Box as easily anymore. I think overall it still has gotten slightly stronger. It's still wildly inconsistent. It's still gonna just do nothing but harm you if you get good players, and it's still gonna give you a free game if you get a bunch of noobs, but at the same time, that's just Iri Film and the unhealthy monster that it is, so nothing else to say about Iri Film. I really hate this add-on. Why wasn't it changed? It's like serum vial to me. Why wasn't this changed? This is such a glaring issue with the add-ons, and it wasn't changed for some reason. All right, anyways, let's go ahead and take a look at the spread now. Last time we took a look at, let's go ahead and just take a look at the spread here. It's a lot more spread out now. We've actually got more than just one add-on up here, but it should have been two, but whatever. The add-ons are, I don't know, are they more spread out? I feel like they're actually pretty well grouped now, if you really take a look at things. Because most of them are right here where they are usable. And there's only a couple outliers now that I really look at it. Oh, that's interesting. If we compare it to last time, everything was a little bit weaker. Granted, I was also using hard to use, easy to use instead of reliable. I think reliable makes more sense here. Yeah, overall, yeah, not much has changed actually. There's a few differences, but I feel like the overall grouping is just kind of shifted up a little bit. So let me know your thoughts below. Did I miss anything? Is there any kind of crazy tech with one of these add-ons that I missed, that I didn't quite realize what was happening? Maybe it's another skill issue like it was with Notebook of Theories. Anyways, with all that said, happy hunting.